It's Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. Check your clocks, folks. You know what that means. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, and we got stuff to get into tonight. Rumors are flying about what's going on with Warner Brothers and if they're talking to WWE. CM Punk is plotting out his 2024. We got a whole new gimmick match in NXT that looks like it's catching fire, and Ring of Honor has a show this weekend. All that and more coming up, folks. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt. All I really want, that Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt. All I really need, that Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt. All I really want, that Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt.
How is it going, folks? It is Thursday night. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast is on the air. Thanks for joining us this evening as we get closer to the holiday season. Will here with Silly Celis to my left, Giant Crab Jamal to my right. Gentlemen, how is it going here as we are in the middle of December now?
Trying to stay healthy. Trying to stay healthy.
I know that feeling. I was fighting something off this week myself. If I don't sound quite like my normal self, that is why. But I'd rather get it out of the way now before for next week we get into the thick of the holidays. So if any bugs are coming through, hit now, please.
Well, forever hold your peace.
There you go. There you go. Some quick housekeeping before we get into things. Our non-spoiler review of The Iron Claw, the Von Erichs film with Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White, all that stuff comes out December 22nd. Our non-spoiler review is up and here on the channel. It got posted this week, and we have a full review that will be dropping shortly. We got it in the can ready to go since we have seen the film a couple weeks ago. So full Iron Claw coverage coming here to Big Gold Belt Media, but the non-spoiler review is up if you're looking to get a taste of what's going on and our immediate reactions. We taped it literally right after we saw the movie that same night. So our fresh take on what we thought of it for folks as we get into the Von Erichs movie dropping in just over a week now. So exciting times coming up in wrestling with that. Let's see. I wasn't going to touch on this at first. Right before we came on the air, it was like, this is all people have been talking about today. So hell, let's get into it. Let's chop it up because I guess there's not enough going on news-wise that people have decided to make a story out of WWE might be talking to Warner Brothers. They might be trying to get Monday Night Raw on the WB networks, on TNT or on TBS. And, let's be clear. SmackDown's going to USA. We know that. NXT is going to CW. And Raw is still very much in play. And supposedly these rumors now are heating up because with CM Punk there, and now CM Punk officially on Raw, that's gotten folks' attention. And the rumor is that, since he was in good with the brass at Warner Brothers when he was working for AEW, that now they're curious. They're interested, is the talk going around. How people know this, I don't know. These folks want to claim they know. I guess they got connections in the boardroom or something. But this is all, I'll be clear, this is all just speculation that's going around today. I've not seen anything that seems like, this is, there's smoke to the fire. But, hell, at this point, anything can happen in wrestling. Anything can happen. Nothing would shock me. So let's chop it up. Say it happens. Let's say it happens. Let's say 2024 starts with an announcement that Monday Night Raw is coming to Warner Brothers. They signed a deal, and if it matters, TBS or TNT or whatever, but let's just say it's going to be comparable to what AEW is now, and it's going to be on one of those channels, because I don't think they'd settle for anything less than that. It would have to be at that level, I would think. So if that happens, what does that look like? So I'm going to step back first. Jamal, what's your take on this? If it were to happen,
So
what happens here?
So SmackDown is going to USA Network, yes?
Yes.
Correct.
And presumably the WWE Network and the remnants of that on Peacock will remain unchanged, yes?
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Peacock deal still has a bid on it, so the pay-per-views ain't moving anywhere right now.
Right. So now this is just about Raw.
Right.
And I think if it's just about Raw, so let's say that they get the deal done and Raw moves to the TNT family.
Mhm.
I like it. And the reason why I like it is because WWE, from a production side, has their own way of doing things. They host their own shows. They have their own production. They can do their own thing top to bottom. There really isn't much that TNT would need to do for them. And they basically, the only thing that WWE doesn't do is broadcast themselves. They produce everything themselves. So what would be the incentive for them to sign with Turner versus ESPN versus, you know, a better deal with Fox Sports or CBS and Showtime? And I think that you would probably want to go with TNT because TNT is trying to invest. Turner's trying to invest in sports. It's already called TNT Sports overseas. So I can see they already have an international platform because WWE had a pretty crummy international deal. They already have, the app which works with Bleacher Report and all that other stuff too. It's a lot of the things it's a lot of the space that WWE is already in, but they don't reach the same audience that TNT, would reach. So when it comes to other sports, you got hockey, you got basketball, March Madness, playoff baseball. TNT is slowly evolving into like a third or fourth, member of the 24/7 sports, family with ESPN top and ABC. You have CBS, then Fox, and then slowly but surely you can't, overlook Turner in that conversation. So I think the synergy is there. WWE loves their brand partnerships. I can definitely see Charles Barkley getting RKO'd out of nowhere on Inside the NBA. But it's also the other things, too, because of things like HBO Max and things, and the Cartoon Network. All of the things that we wished AEW were doing with the Warner Brothers, I can see WWE getting into bed with.
That's their bread and butter. It's what they're known for.
Right. So all of those, brand, cooperation, collaborative efforts between brands, I can definitely see the Miz hosting Shark Week, or something, like that. I can definitely see the New Day hosting a spot on Cartoon Network. And easily. So, don't, God forbid, the New Day takes over a Toonami block or something like that. I'm just saying that WWE in general, this is kind of what they are looking for. They're looking for not just a distributor, they're looking for a partner. And and don't get me wrong, if Disney were in play and they were to say the same thing, I would have said the same thing with Disney.
Yep.
You're damn right you need a WWE World at a Disney theme park. You absolutely need WWE and all of the Disney outlets, whether it's the Orlando Magic or or the Anaheim Angels or wherever else they own, wherever Disney is, WWE would be a part of that too.
Yep.
In the same way that Super Mario World at Universal Studios is a thing, WWE is all about the cross branding, and I think that Turner is just as good as anybody to help them with that in the demographic that they want, because CBS definitely skews older. Disney and ABC, is obviously the bread and butter with families, and Fox definitely skews a little bit older than that, and they've already have a deal with NBC. So I think it could work. It's something that I would like to see happen because they're looking for a partner and not just a distributor.
And I'll just add to that, Crab. I think you make great points. I've slowly seen TNT shape what they've done because it's all about drama for TNT, and sometimes it's all about comedy for TBS. But what you see on TNT and TBS and that family is a lot of repeat shows. There's not a lot of new content, and this is like the worst time in a way. when they had the actors and writer strike where you really had no new content. But what did they do? They dominated with, like you said, NHL, they got NBA, they got MLB. Why not add wrestling to that? And the one night that they're not dominating based on the content that they have is Monday night. Now you have a staple where basically Monday through Friday, you have something to look at on TNT if you're a sports or sports entertainment fan. Because really Tuesday through Friday, they have content related to sports and sports entertainment. So you flip in that WWE on Monday, that's
basketball
a perfect outlet.
On Tuesday and Thursday, hockey Wednesday.
Exactly. And then AEW on Friday and Wednesday itself. So you got multitude of things that goes on. So I think it could be a win-win situation. And I think if WWE wants to tool or toy back in that TV 14, which remember, not too long ago, they say, yeah, we're going to TV 14. TNT is an avenue that can allow that stretching opportunity if they want to tip their toes into going in that TV 14. I think it's a win-win. I think it could be a smart move. And then now you got more content that's coming towards HBO Max. And let's say for futuristic sake, WWE might try to put some special content on HBO Max since AEW or not another wrestling promotion has done that yet. So now you got Peacock and now you got HBO Max. And what if it's a situation where Warner Brothers and Universal wants to combine together? Now you can get both for $25 if you want to do a special price tag to come out both together. So it's a lot of opportunities if WWE plants their seeds right.
Yeah.
All right.
So hold on, real quick. Basically, Turner has to figure their stuff out. The elephant in the room is the fact that Turner is for several $1 billion in debt. The Warner Brothers Discovery as a whole, they are trying to figure out their financial step forward as the acquisition and the fallout from the acquisition of Discovery Networks is taking place. So they're trying to do both things at once in that they are trying to keep, and Lord knows they're trying to keep their audience that they've built and they've grown, but also move forward in a way that doesn't torpedo the company. So, and I think that wrestling just being cheap to produce, they don't have to do anything but other than put it on TV because WWE handles the productions themselves. And then on the other end of that, they would be able to fit and mesh in a brand, such a way. Also, HBO Max definitely needs content. And who's to say that when the Peacock deal isn't over, what would that transition look like to HBO Max? Because we know that HBO Max is looking into live events as well. And, maybe they split the deal because when WWE first network first came out at $9.99 a month, we all said this is too good to be true. Mm-hmm. And several $1 million in losses later, it was too good to be true. So realistically, those days of getting the barn, including the cows in it, are over. So I can definitely see a measured, version of the network coming to HBO Max where you get maybe some of the premium live events, but WrestleMania is a pay-per-view. Maybe it's a mix of both, where you get Raw events on SmackDown events on Peacock and Raw events on HBO Max, and everybody shares WWE Network content from the history. I can definitely see, even in the interim, Raw is live, but the next day it's on HBO Max. So there are a bunch of different ways to slice it, and I just think that the infrastructure's there from Warner Brothers to get it done. And I think that they have their fingers in everything, because we were just talking about how, like, when Mortal Kombat came out, it's a Warner Brothers game. Why aren't we getting AEW Wrestler X in Mortal Kombat?
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can say, well, Mortal Kombat's coming out. They've had, other pop culture figure franchise. Why aren't we getting John Cena? Hell, John Cena's in it as the Peacemaker. But why aren't we getting, Randy Orton transforming into an actual Viper and biting somebody in half? Again, we can go into the cows come home about the different ways of corporate synergy that Warner Brothers and WWE will fit. But I think that this would be interesting. Now, of course, the real question is, let's say that this does happen. Where does that leave AEW?
Right. That is the elephant in the room, is what happens with AEW then, because history would show us WWE don't play well with others on their same network. You just got to look back to ECW. ECW had their deal on Nashville Network for a year, and that just happened to slide right up to when Raw was up for renewal on USA. and Raw had always been on USA. But Viacom, who owned National Network, suddenly was interested in rebranding that, becoming Spike TV, and they're like, you know what? We're going to throw our hat in the ring. Let's see if we can get Monday Night Raw. And sure enough, they did. And the moment they got it, ECW was out the door. That was it. There was no ECW staying on here, like even like a late night slot or something. It was like, bye-bye, you're gone. Now, one thing to keep in mind, new ownership. We do have new ownership now. So how the new owners would handle things, who knows? The UFC is on a ESPN, and they do have minor league MMA groups on there. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. I would think the bigger issue would be the money it's going to take to get WWE, obviously, is a lot more money than they're paying for AEW. So there's going to be a big jump in price there. Let's not forget, they're very much interested in keeping the NBA in some form. Maybe not as much as they have right now.
That's a big moneymaker.
There's a lot of, they got their hands in the NBA, they got their hands in MLB, they got their hands in hockey, and NBA's up right now. So I would think probably the biggest issue would be, even if they wanted to keep AEW, and even if WWE side, TKO, was okay with it, the money just might not be there to do it from what we're hearing financially, to where I can't imagine them both being on the same network, especially like in a situation where they wouldn't want to be sharing advertising space and stuff like that. I can't imagine it. That's my take. I don't know, Celis, what do you think?
I mean, it's hard to say. The only thing I would say it will work because it's on different nights. Now, granted, they are competing as far as their advertisement. But if you say, hey, Monday is strictly focused on WWE, and then Wednesday is strictly focused on AEW, and then, like you said, with basketball and baseball mixed in, which is kind of like two different times of the year. Like right now during the school year, basketball is dominated. When summertime is, that's when baseball dominated. And then they go opposite when it's their playoff time, which is their huge moneymaker. I just don't see anything that could contradict because you're advertising for different nights. Now, if it was on the same night, then I think it could be a problem. But because it's spaced out, you're just winning people coming over to TNT. I think it could be a win-win.
Realistically, there's money that they're stronger together. Dynamite does a pretty decent rating, and this main consistent. What we're looking for from Dynamite is growth, and that's what we're not seeing. WWE, obviously this isn't 1997 anymore, and the television landscape looks a lot different than that time. So they're well past their peak, but so is all of television. It is what it is. I definitely think that they're competing for the same audience, just not at the same time. Because if you're going to say that, well, WWE should partner with the NFL because Raw is on Mondays, so is Monday Night Football. Well, that doesn't stop them from putting on the shows that they're going to put on. It's not a guarantee that the Monday night game is going to even be good, between Team X and Team Y. Nobody really wants to see a 3-0 field goal fest,
which just happened.
So that is a thing too. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen every week, so you can't really cater your show to the competition. And I think that's part of the, for lack of a better phrase, identity crisis that AEW has. We're seeing a lot more sports and entertainment. We're seeing, the same, work rate that you would get on the indies. And for me, it's not really meshing cohesively as it used to. Now, putting that, brand together on television, I don't think that drives down AEW's number, because I don't think WWE fans are going to go, well, I can't watch TNT because they have another wrestling program on there. No. Well, I don't see why they wouldn't. And if anything, you do have other basketball on. The NCAA is doing their men's basketball thing right now. March Madness is a thing that happens every year during the NBA season
on those networks.
On those networks,
and they use their same personalities too. Like for ones that's on NBA,
Charles Barkley will be, at the Final Four and so on and so forth. So Kevin Harlan and all those guys. So it can be separate, and it doesn't have to feel completely segregated. And I do think that there's a lot of, the two companies don't have to interact with each other, but they can share not even the same space. But I think that it's a bit of an ego thing. If you are a company would you want your direct competition to be advertising on the network that you're on?
Right.
At any time. Well, your ego tells you no. Hell no. Get them out of here. And the opposite would be true for AEW. But realistically, as a wrestling fan, if I knew as a fan, this is my one-stop shop for mainstream wrestling in America, then TNT is always on. The network wins.
Right. That's true. That's one way to look at it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
We just laid out the schedule for the week with
Oh,
Raw
my
Monday,
God.
basketball, hockey Wednesday,
Yeah.
Dynamite on TBS. You have basketball Thursday,
Yep.
and SmackDown's on USA on Friday. But if you're TNT, you got 4 out of the 5 days prime time.
Yeah,
because we're talking 8:00 Eastern on Monday through Thursday, where TNT has a high-profile live event on.
Yep.
could
This
be
money
interesting. 2024, folks. A new year is coming. There's new owners involved, so who knows? We will see. I'm thinking early January we're gonna have our answer to what's going on here with where Raw is gonna end up. So we will see. Yeah. There we go. That our rumors of the day. We've taken care of that one. Let's talk about our old friend CM Punk, because last week he hadn't shown up again yet. But what's interesting now is he has set his roadmap for 2024. He laid out his plan this week for what he's doing. So for those who may not have seen things between SmackDown and Raw this Monday, where he got finally met up with Seth Rollins face to face, apparently his plans for 2024 are quite simple. He is entering the Royal Rumble. He plans to win the Royal Rumble. And once that happens, he wants to be world champ. He wants to main event WrestleMania.
That's the only thing.
I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that. It does not get much simpler than that. Of course, that puts him in direct opposition to someone like Cody and all that. But they set
Cody
the groundwork.
Never finish the story. Sorry.
That's hey, as I've said for a long time now, finishing the story can be that you can't finish the story. Sometimes the finishing of the story is that you can't complete the journey. So we will see. But Seth Rollins is already crossing paths with CM Punk and making it clear he does not want him there. A hell of a promo this past Monday between those two, where it would seem the plan is to get to those two at WrestleMania. So here's the question. Is that drawing it out too far? Is this what CM Punk should be doing? Is this the best use of him? Because, hell, here it is December. WrestleMania ain't till April. There's a lot of time between now and then. Oh, and I guess the other part I almost forgot was his first opponent's been announced. He is going to have his first match back in WWE against Dominic Mysterio in Madison Square Garden at the Holiday House Show there the day after Christmas. So we have his first match back too, and they're doing it on a house show, which I thought was an interesting move. That it's not going to be TV. So moving some holiday tickets for the Garden while we're at it. So we have a roadmap for him now. So is this the path he should be taking, or is there a better way to go about things? You think, Celis, thoughts?
This is the only path you can take. This is the easiest way, where I bet when he signed, he says, if I'm coming back, I have to main event WrestleMania. Because remember, when he was back there 10 years ago, back in 2014, that's what he left over. He wanted to main event WrestleMania. He had his long reigning time as a champion, and then he lost it to The Rock and everything of that nature. He had a great match against The Undertaker, which was which was speculated to be the main event, or should have been the main event at the time. That's all he wanted. He's done everything in WWE except done the one thing that is the mecca for certain wrestlers. Let me main event the Super Bowl of my event. And I think this is the only way. You can't put him up against Roman. I think that's just unfair to do that. I think Seth Rollins and the story that they built up for when he returned, and how Seth kind of started that with his irateness when he came back, to the promo that they have, this is the plain and simple script that only needs to happen. And it's plain and simple, like you laid it out, Will. Let him win the Rumble. He's going to choose between Roman and Seth. Let him choose Seth, so whoever goes against Roman can battle it out in the chamber. It's the only thing you do. And when you main event him on Saturday night. So let that close the Saturday night. So once again, it's not the Sunday main event. Do it like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Let him main event. And I think this will be the perfect time for Seth to now officially lose the belt so that way he can win it on main event, or the main event of WrestleMania. And I think, of course, with the rumors of Seth and Becky's contract ending, I don't even know if they want to stop wrestling right now so they can spend time as a family and maybe take a break for a little bit and have them come back later. This would be a good time just to let Seth go about his way and maybe Becky go about their way for a little bit and let CM Punk have his moment. But then again, if CM Punk wins, it's a good way to take the belt off of them if you want to do a cash in, if you want to do a Damian Priest. So it's also interesting that they're using Madison Square Garden with this first match against Dominic. So that way you have the Judgment Day still being a part of CM Punk and still can protect him for right now and be in the face. So I think it's the only way that you can do it. If you do it a different way, I think you're going to mess up the momentum that he has. Once again, I did not care that CM Punk was coming back to WWE. I thought it was going to happen one day. Now that it's here, this is the last way that you can use CM Punk in the right way. Might as well make it simple, make it make sense.
Obviously, with CM Punk, less is more. It doesn't, he's only going to appeal to a certain type of the audience, and those are going to be the people that know. Those are going to be people that, so the people that know and genuinely like CM Punk and thought that he fell into off the face of the earth, and now he's reappeared again. It's going well, what happened?
Yeah.
And then of course there are going to be the people that know that he left and then appeared in AEW, and that lasted for a short time, and then it is what it is, and then he came back. Okay, cool. For everybody else, it's going to be a little bit of context needed for whatever he does and why he's so important. But that's why I think less is more. He hasn't been in WWE in 10 years. So there's a whole new audience that is used to Roman Reigns and the guys that have been there, that are running WWE right now. And then here he comes and he's put in a position of privilege.
Yep.
We've heard this story before in AEW, and the first thing that we said, I think you said it, Will, is specifically where does Adam Page factor into all of this when you're moving at so many guys that are in his spot that are going to be placed above him that pushes him down the ladder. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened. I don't know who that person is that CM Punk is bumping down the ladder. Maybe that person is Cody. I say in jest that Cody won't finish the story, but realistically, Punk Rollins is the feud that we get right now.
Yep.
And so where does that leave Cody? So, and Roman's been absent and hasn't been advertised anywhere. So when does he come back in a meaningful way? And we know that he's got the Lesnar schedule now.
Yeah.
So that is, kind of a thing also. Now, you have to not necessarily reestablish Punk because they came out with the merch. He got the pop that he wanted in Chicago. Okay, cool. But to keep that momentum going, less is more. And I think that, Punk and Rollins, with their promo listed, and their program listed rather, it's, you can definitely keep that going through the Royal Rumble. And realistically, the road to WrestleMania is not a long one.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happens WrestleMania because we still have to factor in Roman. We still have to factor in Cody. We still have to factor in those that are hanging on the bubble. Will Drew McIntyre even be there? Does Lashley fit in this in any way? What will Brock make his quarterly appearance?
A lot of people are glad right now that WrestleMania is 2 nights these days.
Right. You need it.
Right. You kind of need it so that people can get that moment. Instead of having that moment at 2 a.m. Yeah. So I'm cautiously optimistic that WWE will use him sparingly, and let him let the kind of just ride the wave a little bit. As far as him working a house show, it's not just a house show. Raw isn't live next week because of Christmas, or Raw isn't live that week because of Christmas. So the very next night in New York, they're doing a big show at Madison Square Garden. And that's going to start off the hell week of house shows before they get back to things come New Year's.
Yep.
So it's another good reason to continue the house show circuit, but then build up the credibility while Raw isn't on TV to give people something to talk about. So it seems like they definitely have more of a blueprint for CM Punk than what the blueprint looked like for AEW, which is not surprising. But I think stretching this out to WrestleMania, which is early April, so we're talking in 2 weeks, 4 months. Well, that's about how long an AEW pay-per-view cycle is, and the WWE has two pay-per-views in between then. So I'm not particularly worried because if we do get enough of Punk, they still have other guys that can be put in that position so that Punk gets this much needed time off. Mm-hmm. Guys like Walter, guys like not Wesley because he's injured, but guys like in NXT, Carmelo Hayes is coming up, to do a thing. When will Braun Breaker make his official ascension to the roster? So they're definitely they have a lot more pieces. If Punk gets a little bit longer in the tooth, all right, cool. We can sit him down and we can move somebody right into that spot. But in the short term, the Royal Rumble being a month away, that's an easy promo between him and Rollins. And that's a good first promo too.
Yeah. I'm with you guys. I think this is a case where the most obvious story is the best story. It's right in front of you. All the pieces are there. The only real work they got to do, they started doing this past Monday, where for the folks that don't know all the drama from elsewhere, they had Seth explaining that part to them. Like, you left and you talked bad about us and said all these things online and wanted you worked to hurt things here and to damage everything that we've done. And you think you can just come back. So there is time to tell the story for those that aren't familiar of why it's an odd situation for CM Punk to be back in WWE and what he did in the meantime and all this. So I can't think of anything that would pay off as good as this. And it's also, hell, we're in that phase right now where everyone's kind of like, waiting to see, all right, is he going to play ball? Is he going to be cool? So far, so good. But, water can get choppy very quickly around him. So this is also like, go with the pat hand, go with the easy deal, and let's see how it goes. Let's see if this is smooth sailing, and then we go from there. All right, folks, we are going to take our mid-show break. When we come back, we have the Indie Spotlight coming up, and then we're going to talk about NXT and the new gimmick match they created, because they got some interesting stuff going on down there, and I think we might be seeing that possibly outside of NXT sooner rather than later, because when something's this good, it tends to not stick around there for too long. But that and some more stuff coming in the second half of the show, folks. Stay with us. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Are you a fan of all things media? Are you a fan of professional wrestling and sports? Then you need to check out Big Old Belt Media. We're the ultimate destination for all things entertainment and media, with the latest news, interviews, and analysis from the world of the aforementioned entertainment realm. Our team of dedicated journalists and analysts will bring you exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else. And we're not just an online destination. We attend live events, conventions, bringing you behind-the-scenes access and exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else. Plus, you can show your support for our brand by subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/BigGoldBelt. Join the Big Gold Belt Media community today and stay ahead of the game. Follow all our social media platforms at Big Gold Belt for the latest updates and exclusive content. Whether you're a diehard wrestling, sports, nerd culture fan, or just a casual like some people, Big Gold Belt Media has everything you're going to need to stay informed and entertained. So what are you waiting for? Check us out today at BigGoldBelt.com. That's BigGoldBelt.com.
Welcome back, folks. When we start our second half off here on the Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast, we like to check out what's going on with the indies. So here's Giant Crab with this week's Big Old Belt Indie Wrestling Spotlight.
Yep, and this week we're going out to Los Angeles for Circle 6 Wrestling. It's the King of the Death Matches 2023. We've been talking about it all month, but we're really excited about the show. December 30th at the Don Quixote. That's in Los Angeles, California. That's 2811 East Olympic Boulevard in Los Angeles. You can get your tickets at circle6.shop. That's circle, the number 6.shop. Check them out on Twitter, circle, the number 6_CO, circle 6_CO. But it's December 30th. Good way to end the year with a little bit of deathmatch wrestling out there in Los Angeles. Circle 6 Wrestling presents the King of the Deathmatch tournament. And, so they have all the match card, everything's listed on their Twitter. It's going to be a hell of a show out there. It's definitely one that you're going to want to get, and tickets are moving. First row's already sold out. Plenty of tickets available, but you don't want to be that guy that waits too long before you don't get the seat that you want. And it's one of the interesting things about the ticket situation here is that you can pick the actual seat that you want. There are no excuses. There are no mistakes. There are no bartering for, this your sort of seat of interest. But go ahead and get it. Get it right now. Get it for Christmas, or whatever holiday you're celebrating this time of year. Get it for yourself. Treat yourself to Circle 6 Wrestling, the King of the Deathmatch Tournament 2023 at Don Quixote on December 30th. That's out in Los Angeles, California, and that's the Indie Spotlight for this week.
There we go. I've always thought that wrestling tickets are a very easy stocking stuffer, and especially if they're indie wrestling tickets, then they're not having to spend a whole heck of a lot to have an event out for the evening. Right. So look into it, folks. Lots of indies running this holiday season as we head into the new year. So last weekend, NXT Deadline. We talked about it last week on the show. Old NXT TakeOver Bridgeport, as we like to call it, as they're up there in Connecticut. The highlight of this show, easily, by a wide margin, it seems, is the new NXT Iron Survivor match that they started up last year. And I don't know if it's maybe as many people didn't see it last year or what for the first time around, but this was only the second go around of it. So there's only been 4 of these matches in total.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 they did this past weekend, they really seem to catch people's attention this time around, and pretty universal praise up for what I saw. And I didn't get to see the show live that night. I watched it the next day, and so all the hype was kind of out there about, these Iron Survivor matches are pretty darn good. They really did something here. I think they got something hot on their hands. And lo and behold, I watched both the matches, the women's and the men's one, and by the end of it, I was like, folks ain't kidding. These are pretty damn good. So, and it's interesting to me because I'm not a huge fan of Iron Man matches or marathon matches where there's like a clock involved. But the adding in the intervals to this, to where it's like, okay, you got, it's not just 2 people the whole time. You got other people entering the match. You got the penalty box. There's enough moving pieces here that they really held my attention. They did a lot of creative stuff with this. So I think NXT's got something on their hands here, and it's been quite a long time since we've gotten a new gimmick match that's actually like got potential and legs, and it's like good, and they got something here. Shawn Michaels and the NXT 2.0 folks have come up with something. So, Celis, did you get to see the Iron Survivor matches?
I did, and I loved both of them. Loved both of them. But here's the one stipulation that you have to do to make these things work. You have to book them properly. And I got to give a shout out to the men's side, because literally when I was watching, I was hoping for Trick Williams to win. I felt like he should have won that match. But it was like, 2 minutes ago, and I was like, man, he only have any pins right now. I say there's no way he's going to win. And then boom, has 1 pin. Boom, has another. And I was like, really, is this going to happen? So you make a setup where the match flowed very perfectly, where each person had their spot. But then you had that comeback at the end that didn't seem cheesy. It seemed very realistic, and it was timed properly. And the right person, I thought, won. And I think you really can do these gimmick matches in a good way. And I even throw back to another gimmick match that I used to love that you can do all in one show. And I mean like a Raw and a SmackDown, the Beat the Clock Challenge. I really loved when they had that, because that way, whoever set the time in the beginning, when it's done right, got a chance to either corrupt or try to alter the time at the end so they could save their time. I think it's, very well done. This match kind of reminds me of that championship scramble, because if you remember that championship scramble where the Brian Kendrick was actually a world heavyweight champion at a small time, just of how that worked. So whoever got pinned became the champion for that moment, and then they remained champion until they got pinned. So it was just very interesting to see how they do it, but it depends on how they book the match. So when you think about Money in the Bank match, when you think about the Elimination Chamber, they became staple premium live events because they had early bookings that were very well done. And I think if you can book them the right way, you can have these creative gimmick matches, but it has to make sense and book the right way.
Yeah, obviously, it has to be booked the right way. Every match has to be booked the right way. But I think as we were talking about it before last week, weren't really sure how the match was going to work. The rules seemed a bit overcomplicated, and for wrestling fans, the simplest thing may be the best thing sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when you look at it, it's like, no, this is sports. This is exactly what sports is.
Yes.
Because if you watch any sport and you go into if you're watching any sport and you're a fan of any sport, you know the intricacies, you know the ins and outs, and you can compare it to something else. And then the person that has no idea what they're watching, doesn't matter what the sport is, it might just be speaking a different language.
Right.
So with this thing, the thing I like the most is the fact that both matches, both equally good, were so very different.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was the same match, but it was presented in a totally different way. And it wasn't like an Iron Man match where the match is going on, but only the last 5 minutes matter. Or It wasn't like a championship scramble or the beat the clock challenge where somebody does a thing and you're just trying to get the squash or whatever the case is. But this thing, when I thought about what we saw, I started thinking about what we didn't see.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about the other ways that this match could have been presented. And if you didn't watch it, it's definitely worth a watch. And the pay-per-view overall was pretty damn good. But I think the timing was perfect. 25 minutes is a good time. Yeah. It's not a complete half an hour so that you have time to get the promo packages in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the champion the winner to celebrate afterwards. That segment of a half an hour, and this is kind of what my thoughts were last week, was that it's a half an hour. The other match is a half an hour. The show is 3 hours. That means that the other 5 matches or 4 matches have plenty of time to go and do what they need to do. And looking at the time limits of everything, 10 minutes for Dragon Lee versus Mr. Dominic Mysterio. That's a good length. That's a good way to kick it off. Then you had the 25-minute Iron Survivor. Okay, cool. Carmelo Hayes and Lexis King, they went 11 minutes. Cool. They didn't need to do more than that. They actually may have done too much.
Yep.
They kept it moving. Then we had another Iron Survivor match. That's 25 minutes. Kiana James and Roxanne Perez. Okay, nice come down match, steel cage match, 11 minutes. Cool. They got in, they got out. I'm good. And then, of course, the main event was 20 minutes. 20 minutes for a Baron Corbin match is about 15 minutes too long for me. But it is the main event. It is for the NXT champion. And 20 minutes makes sense. It helps with the pacing of the show. Yeah. And it also helps with the hard 25-minute time limit. You don't have to wonder how long you're going to be there.
Nope.
Yeah.
You can definitely say that, like, okay, now we are, I know that the show is on point to end and whatever. WrestleMania, because it's WrestleMania, it does go a little bit long, but that's acceptable. Royal Rumbles can be damn near 90 minutes. And they do 2 of them.
Yeah.
It's a lot. That's a lot on one show.
That's a lot on one show. And you get to X number of other matches, 3 or 4 other matches. That's a long show. So the point is overall, and notice that we're not really talking about the action that happened within the match, because realistically, I don't remember any of it because it was so much. There were so many little things that were happening, so many, ways that it was set up. But I will say, like Lash Legend pinning 2 people at once, I thought that was very interesting.
They made Lash look like $1 million in that.
Exactly. I was interested to see if they counted the 2 pinfalls for her, because they put one over top of the other and she was over top of both of them. Well, wouldn't the person in the middle get the pin for the person on the bottom? They didn't do that, obviously. They didn't do that, obviously, but that could have changed. If they were to do that, they would have changed the structure of the score as well. Yeah. And then, of course, now that you're looking at this as a sport, there were moments where you're like, well, wait a minute. If he pins this guy and there's only 2 people in the ring, then that means that there are no available pinfalls left because everybody's in the box for a number of time. Yeah. What do? Do you wear him down and pin him quickly and then get to the next person that just comes out of the box? Now we're talking strategy. Yeah. And even though it is wrestling, it is a work. The first thing Marcella said was, we need to book this properly. And then once you realize that it's booked properly, you lose sight of the fact that it's a work and you start talking legit strategy. How do you win this game? And after seeing both of them, and those are obviously the 2 matches that stood out to me, and it was a pretty damn good show. if this match is in 2K24,
Oh,
I might pick it up.
oh, I agree. And I haven't picked up a game since 17, so
Right.
I would agree.
13 for me. So I would say that like if they can replicate that in 2K, we might have to talk about it.
And can you imagine an all-out platform of that, of people wanting to join? And that'll be amazing.
Because now we're talking actual strategy and how do you win this match? Because it's not just bum rush everybody, get out to a 7-0 lead. Well, no, you can't race to a 7-0 lead.
Nope.
There's only 5 people in the match, and if you pin all 4 of them, that's the best you can do until somebody comes back out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there is some strategy and some gamesmanship into it. So
yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, there was a lot. Watch the match if you haven't seen it. It's definitely worth it.
Definitely.
But I think hats off to both sides, the men's and the women's. And honestly, it kind of makes me want to watch the first one because I want to see what they did differently.
Yeah, the first year. Yeah. Thinking about that. Yeah, I'd be curious to go back and watch the first one again, just because I have no real memories of the first ones.
Yeah.
So now it's like, how did they do it the first time?
And the way
it clicked so well. It might have been a case of, they need to work some kinks out the first time around, and this time they knew better. Like, okay, no, this didn't work in this one. This didn't work in this one. Now we do it this way.
Yep.
And the stars aligned this time around.
But and the commentary kept explaining that like this was the first match, so it kind of makes me believe that maybe it wasn't as received as well as it could have been.
A reboot.
Because they were really explaining the match as it went along, as good commentary should. But they really were driving the point home that, okay, now we know what this means and all these other things. Cool. So it really felt like a first time in the way that commentary was displaying the match. But yeah, now the question is, because it's NXT, where does it show up on the main roster?
Right. Now that it's clicked.
I think if they can string a couple along of these, I think this is a Saudi match. This is a perfect this is a perfect Saudi match. It doesn't have to be it doesn't need its own pay-per-view. It's not Money in the Bank. We have enough of those already. Because we don't want to make it a thing where it becomes diluted.
Yeah.
But if it's a good Saudi show, the Saudis shows are good within themselves, but they don't feel connected, canically to the rest of the main roster. So I think it's something that you can have every year, but kind of forget about. It's in the back of your mind versus the Royal Rumble, which is at the forefront, or Money in the Bank or Survivor Series, which is at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And let me add that to it. I'll take your Saudi match and let me raise it. I think this should be for a mid-card title or a title you want to bring back. So think about this. If you had this match and the winner of this becomes your Intercontinental Champion, or your winner becomes the U.S. Champion, or hell, let's say you want to bring back the European Championship match, just for that to expand and get more players on your card where you can have this type of scramble to do that, then I think it can happen. So I would love, hypothetically, if the European title came back and you fought this. Think about the certain things that you could do with those, up-and-coming wrestlers that could compete for a title for that. So I would take what you said, Krabby, and raise it to that, make it a 4-belt.
But even as title match, this was a number one contendership match the whole time for the pay-per-view, and you already have the Rollins, definitely not a placeholder belt because Roman needs to hold on to the title forever belt championship. You could easily have a scramble for that, because notice that Roman's been out of sight, out of mind. That's been not necessarily cooling off, but kind of like, oh, we have so much to distract us when he comes back.
Timing it for the new year, clearly.
Right. It's going to be a thing when he finally comes back. So we don't need to pay attention to that. Look at Rollins and CM Punk and everybody else that's involved. But then what if that match is, just before WrestleMania or Fastlane or whatever the pay-per-view is? What if that thing is the number one contendership match with the Royal Rumble winner, and so on and so whatever they decide to do. So,
well, speaking of that, our boy Damian G chiming in here. Would this replace the Elimination Chamber?
It should, because it basically is Elimination Chamber.
I think they can be two separate. They
can be two separate things. Yeah,
in their own ways. But yeah, it's interesting because both cases, They haven't done the NXT ones we just saw. They were both for number one contenderships. They weren't for a title. So, and the Elimination Chamber typically has always just been, for the other title match at WrestleMania or something like that. So, I don't know. But yeah, maybe the idea would be you easily could insert this in place of an Elimination Chamber. But the pods could be the penalty box.
They could, but I think
into the cage. So, I didn't think oh my God, I didn't think of this. So these rules, but in the Elimination Chamber.
Okay, I could do that. These rules in the Elimination Chamber, but I think you can't. Absolutely, I think you can't take that structure away because, in a way, in my personal opinion, I think Elimination Chamber has kind of taken over why we don't see as many cage matches or Hell in a Cell. But you make a great point, Will.
Well, that red cage kind of is the reason why we don't see many Hell in a Cell.
True, but the way Damien, you kind of put that on the spot about the pods can be the penalty box. That's an interesting concept. That is an interesting concept, but I still think you call it the Elimination Chamber, but you may modify it with these rules.
That's an interesting twist. Point.
Yeah, but I also think that because we were talking about something else and how would you want to do it in the same space, and it's like, well, and I forget what match it was, but like Survivor Series or something like that.
Yep.
Could you have this match now at Survivor Series, and could you have it again? And time, of course, would need to separate them. But I think but it's also the why. In the road to WrestleMania, we already have several number one contendership matches that jockey back and forth between then and WrestleMania. Right. So I think obviously it's the Iron Survivor, so Survivor Series, which we've been trying to retool.
We're not doing War Games every year.
Yeah. And, like we don't. That's what it was. Do we need War Games and Hell in a Cell? Do we need Elimination Chamber and Iron Survivor Challenge? So that's why I think that kind of like distance between the two. Yes, you can have War Games in November and Hell in a Cell in February, or whenever you decide to do it. But they just need to be kind of distant from each other, which is why I say this works in a Saudi show. Because Saudi shows isn't anything that you're going to refer back to too many times after it ends.
Yeah.
But it's also something that you can look forward to independently.
Yeah.
Between the Saudi shows and the few B shows they still have, there's one. That's where I think it would fit best because you have these smaller shows still that need something.
Right.
So that's a little extra.
What's the thing in Australia? Is that Payback?
That's Elimination Chamber. Payback. Backlash is going to be in France.
Okay. So Backlash is in France. They got a show in Germany.
And then we have the one coming up in Germany too. So these other shows, like you need something for these other shows. So there's absolutely places it can be fit in. So I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, I like it.
Ideas too.
I like that, but I also think and a big big ups to the people that were in the match. All of them, even Kalani Jordan, who missed everything and went back first into the table, and my chair broke when she did that. You need people that can handle the match to work the match. So, I mean, if they, I don't have a problem with them swapping for NXT.
NXT needs gimmick matches too.
They need a thing.
Yeah, they need.
You can't just tell everything from NXT.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I think they work on getting into 2K24, but also that's job number one.
That's the priority.
That's job number one. But number two, NXT still needs something for them, and and I do agree with that. I personally would like to see it stay as an NXT exclusive thing, but you also need the clientele. I don't know if the WWE women can work. I don't think they have 5 women that can work this match.
You need the right people.
You need the right people.
Sure.
And if you think you got 5, you really need 10 because you can't do it every single year with the same 5. But yes, Kalani Jordan. More importantly, me and her chiropractor were both saying a silent prayer.
Oh no!
And she finished the match too. So again, you need the right personnel.
Folks out through it one way or another. Yeah. All right. Let's get our home stretch here. We got a couple minutes left on this deal. A lot going on tonight. My God. So all these shows happening. I almost forgot today when I was laying things out. It's like there's a Ring of Honor show this weekend, which I can understand why I was forgetting about it, because as we often talk about, the paywall of Honor is forgotten about. You know, it just is what it is. But tomorrow night down in Texas is Final Battle 2023.
Yep.
So this is an odd card looking at it here. So here's what we got going on at Final Battle. We have Dalton Castle versus Commander versus Kyle Fletcher versus Lee Johnson versus Lee Moriarty versus, to be decided in a survival of the fittest finals for the vacant ROH television championship that Samoa Joe decided he didn't want. We have Keith Lee versus Shane Taylor. So old tag partners colliding down there. We have an I Quit match with Ethan Page and Tony Nese. We have a Jay Briscoe Memorial Fight Without Honor. FTR and Mark Briscoe taking on the Blackpool Combat Club of Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, and Claudio Castagnoli. Athena versus Billy Starks for the ROH Women's World Championship, which is by far the most promoted thing Ring of Honor seems to be doing these days, is Athena's run with the World Women's title down there. And then last but not least, Hijo del Vikingo versus Black Taurus for the AAA Mega Championship. So quite an odd card to me, because I'm like, God, there's no ROH title. There's like the TV titles vacant and kind of being decided, and like we got a tag match. We have the women's champ. I'm assuming the women's championship is the main event, but then again, I look at that Fight Without Honor with FTR and Bryan Danielson and John Moxley, and maybe that is just because of the star power. I would think one of those two got to be the main event, but this is interesting because we got this card, and here's the other thing. It's not on pay-per-view like the other ones have been. This is, you have to get Honor Club now. So, guys, what are we doing here? We talk about Ring of Honor and just like, what purpose is it serving here? And they're doing a pay-per-view tomorrow night. So, I don't know. What's the deal?
There's a couple of things with this, and I'll make it quick. Eddie Kingston is the ROH World Champion. Isn't that belt a part of the Fusion belt?
That's right. The Continental Classic. It's part of that. Right. So that explains why.
So they took their biggest belt and molded it with the other big belt from New Japan, America, and they're going to make the Fusion title at Continental Classic. So
right.
So there's that. There is no television champion because Samoa Joe doesn't care, and the Pure division, which is the best thing about Ring of Honor, aside from Athena's hellacious run, Yuta isn't doing a thing with that on this card either. I don't think. What's his face? Friedman and Adam Cole are the tag team champions, and the Embassy are the 6-man tag team champions. What is the show?
Right.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Their champions are all over the place, and they're not on the show. You have the Memorial Fight Without Honor, which again dilutes the product, but it just doesn't make sense of what the show is. And then you're having it in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area, which is one thing. And yeah, tickets aren't looking great either. It's Friday during rush hour in the DFW Metroplex. If you don't know what that means,
terrible.
It's beyond terrible, because they're two big cities and they put it in the middle of the two big cities, and then you're expected to drive an hour to go to the show. It doesn't make sense why this thing is on Friday,
Garland,
during
Texas.
rush hour. I don't get it. Why isn't Ring of Honor running the smaller venue? Why aren't they running in the territories that made Ring of Honor famous? Baltimore, Philly, New York, Milwaukee,
Northeast,
Cleveland, Atlanta, the Northeast in general, and Atlanta. I don't know. But they're in Texas during rush hour, and they expect people to come see who? Because their main champion is Eddie Kingston, and it's worse than New York City traffic because there is no transit infrastructure. You can't really catch the train anywhere. It's a mess, and everybody drives in Texas. So the point is that they did it on a Friday. What is Ring of Honor competing with? Why they couldn't do it on a Saturday? Oh, Collision. Stop it. Stop. And
So
also,
instead they go up against SmackDown, you know,
right. So and
with
of course
Roman Reigns returning for the first time in weeks.
So and it's on Honor Club. So not only do they not really advertise the pay-per-view, they haven't even advertised how you can watch the damn thing, and then they put the show during rush hour on a Friday. Make it make sense.
So I'm just going to say it simply. I'm going to call this the Giant Crab Show on Friday and say, do I care?
Oh,
and I don't care about this show at all. Like it's not good all the way around. Now, will they perform and try their best they can? Yeah, sure. But I'm still not over Samoa Joe just throwing away a championship that he doesn't want anymore. I'm still not over that.
Yeah, I mean, Athena versus Billy. I mean, like, honestly, all of the matches look fine.
Right.
But they would have looked better on Saturday, would have had more organic time to watch it. Because, you know, it's Friday, it's what, 7 or 8 o'clock? You know, that's SmackDown time, if I were so inclined. But either way, I mean, we can go on and on about that. The point is just that they run this pretty decent-sized building for Ring of Honor. And I say decent size because Ring of Honor isn't really advertised. It's behind the paywall. It's something that AEW really doesn't focus on. So why would you expect? And it was already a niche thing anyway. This wasn't like Ring of Honor, you know, lost 90% of its audience. Its audience was already smaller in number. So I just don't understand the methodology behind bringing this thing. And it's not even like an authentic brand by itself because most of the Ring of Honor roster are just AEW product that they can't get on Dynamite.
And they're bringing in Blackpool Combat Club to prop up the show, essentially.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, Lee Johnson, God bless him. And I love Lee Johnson. I think he's a hell of a talent. But we know damn well why he's in Ring of Honor. So then, if you want to make Ring of Honor the NXT of AEW, cool. Make it that. If you want to make Ring of Honor, you know, the Shotgun Saturday Night of AEW, cool. Make it that. But it needs to be something other than the brand that used to have CM Punk on it 20 years ago.
Yeah, it needs an identity. I'm sure that Athena and Billy Starks match is going to be really damn interesting. If everything on there, that's the one I'd probably be like, okay, that I might try to track down after the fact. But I'm definitely not sweating it Friday night, and I sure as hell ain't signing up for Honor Club to try and make this thing happen. I ain't going through all that trouble, you know? Oh, my God. We'll see. I mean, what they're going to do in 2024, I don't know. I don't know what the role is here.
And you got to wonder what that means to Warner Brothers because don't they own a chunk of AEW?
There's been talk. I don't know if they do for sure or not, but who knows?
So, I mean, so it is kind of a thing. And that's also a thing, too. They cut Dark for this. And I'm not saying that because Dark was my favorite product, but it's just that Dark was so flexible. No, I mean, it is my favorite product, full stop. But Dark was so flexible that you don't have to shoehorn everything into this. It could just be Dark. And that's actually a thing that people complained about. Why are we watching 25 matches in a row that don't have any meaning? Well, why are we watching, Ring of Honor for no meaning?
Damien's dropping the truth bombs here. Oh, man.
Even Matt Taven's on Dynamite. So there you go.
Oh, boy. There we go. Right quick as we finish up here, because Impact is on as we're doing this, and they're about to go through their TNA rebranding. Myron Kidd's telling us, snap, TNA trying to load up Hard to Kill, Snake Eyes, Ospreay, Okada, and Vikingos going to be honored. The TNA relaunch, I am very curious about.
I'm excited.
Coming in a couple weeks. I'm definitely curious about that. I will go out of my way to see that first show.
Yeah.
Very curious about that in the new year. We got weeks to talk about that ahead. So we are at our hour, folks. We are at our hour. Been a busy show tonight. This is a fun one. We had a lot going on tonight. Fun show as we head towards the holidays. Yes, indeed. Thursday nights, 8 p.m., folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast is right here, streaming live, YouTube, Twitch, all those platforms you like, streaming on X, all that kind of stuff. The next day, it drops in podcast form on all your favorite podcast platforms. So whether you want video or audio, we have you covered. On social media, you can always find us at Big Gold Belt on all the social media platforms, and of course, biggoldbelt.com for all the full website action with movie reviews and all that kind of stuff. Like we said, Iron Claw review, our non-spoiler version is up, and the full review is in the can and coming shortly, plus some interviews with folks involved. Got to talk to the director recently, so 2 Chainz will be dropping that with some inside stuff. So lots of stuff coming, folks. Big Gold Belt Media, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. Stay safe this holiday season as we get closer to the end of the year, and stay warm because it's getting cold out there, folks. Until then, we will see you next week, folks. Have a good time, watch some wrestling, and we will talk to you then.
All I really need, that